The January wind howled like a wounded beast, rushing through the yard of a private home on the outskirts of a small town in Montana. In the corner, where the snow had been piled into drifts, stood a metal cage, covered in frost, its bars gleaming like bones in the moonlight. Inside, curled up tightly, shivered a German shepherd. Her once powerful figure now resembled a shadow. Her dirty, matted fur could not protect her emaciated body from the cold, and her breath escaped in short clouds, dissolving into the chill. Bella did not lift her head. Her eyes, dark as the winter night, stared into the void, lacking struggle, only weariness. The yard was silent. Only occasionally the gate creaked, slamming in the wind. The house with a sagging porch and dim light in the window was quiet. The owner, a man with a heavy gaze and hands smelling of tobacco, did not come out. He had set the cage 3 days ago, abandoning Bella on bare metal without food or water. "Deserved it," was his only response when the neighbor, old Martha Wilson, dared to ask. Her voice trembled, but he only spat into the snow and slammed the door shut. Martha Wilson, a woman with a stooped back and hands hardened from life, couldn't forget Bella's gaze. She knew dogs, having sheltered mutts her whole life, fed the homeless, mended their wounds, but Bella was different. Her silence and stillness were not just weakness, they were pain that couldn't be expressed in words. Martha hadn't slept for 2 nights, listening to the wind, fearing she would find the dog dead in the morning. She knew the owner wouldn't change his mind. His cruelty was not a burst of anger, but cold conviction, like the frost. In the morning, wrapped in an old scarf, Martha called her niece Jenny, a woman with a firm character who helped the local shelter. Jenny wasn't a volunteer in the usual sense. She didn't write posts online or raise money. She acted, finding veterinarians, transporting animals, securing permits. Martha hesitantly told her about the cage, Bella, and the owner's words. "She won't survive," her voice broke. "Something needs to be done." Jenny listened. Her fingers gripped the phone. She knew people like that owner, those for whom a dog was nothing more than a tool, and betrayal, even imaginary, was punished without mercy. "I'll come," she said. "Wait." Martha nodded, though her niece couldn't see her. She went outside. Her gaze fell on the cage where Bella still lay, her breathing so weak it seemed the snow might soon cover her forever. Martha clenched her fists. She couldn't change the world, but she could try to save this dog, and that was enough to begin. Snow crunched under Jenny's feet as she stepped out of her car, parked by the sagging fence. The frost nipped at her cheeks, but her gaze was as steady as the ice beneath her feet. She carried a warm blanket and a flashlight whose beam cut through the dark outlines of the yard. The cage stood in the corner, almost buried in the drift, and within it, Bella, whose body seemed part of this icy prison. Jenny stopped, her breath paused. The dog didn't stir, but her eyes, catching the light, glinted like embers in ash. There was life in them, weak but stubborn. Martha waited by the gate. Her scarf had slipped, revealing grey strands. "She's very bad," she whispered, her voice shaking not only from the cold. Jenny nodded. Her face was stern, but pain flickered in her eyes. She had seen many dogs, beaten, hungry, abandoned, but Bella was different. Her silence, her immobility spoke not of fear, but resignation, as if she had accepted her fate. It was worse than a howl. It was despair. Jenny approached the cage, her steps cautious not to frighten the dog. She knelt, ignoring the snow soaking her jeans. "Bella," she called softly, her voice gentle yet firm. "I'm here." The dog didn't respond, only her ears twitched, as if the sound of her name still held meaning. Jenny noticed Bella's paws, pressed against her body, were coated in a crust of ice. The hind leg lay awkwardly, as though the dog feared to move it. Jenny clenched her teeth. She knew time was running out. The door of the house creaked and the owner stepped onto the porch. His figure, heavy and angular, seemed part of the cold yard. A cigarette smoldered in his hand, its glow the only warm spot in the scene. "What are you doing?" he growled, his voice gravelly. "She's my business, deserved it." Martha retreated, her fingers clenched the scarf, but Jenny didn't move. She lifted her eyes, her gaze colder than the frost. "For what?" she asked, her voice cutting like a knife. "For trusting you." The man spat, his face twisted. "She ate a chicken, betrayed. I fed her and she—" "Chicken?" Jenny slowly rose, brushing snow from her knees. "You'd kill a dog over one chicken." The owner stepped forward. His shadow fell onto the snow like a stain. "My dog, my right," he gritted. "The law disagrees," Jenny replied, pulling out her phone. "I work with the shelter. I have photos, times, witnesses. Animal cruelty is a criminal offense. Choose, either you give Bella to me now, or the police will be here tomorrow." The man froze. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened. He looked between Jenny and Martha, who stood straight despite her age. The wind tugged at her grey hair, but she didn't avert her gaze. "Take her," he finally spat, turning toward the house. "Just make sure she's gone." Jenny didn't wait for him to change his mind. She took out tools from her bag and started working on the cage's lock. Her fingers, despite the cold, moved confidently. Martha shone the flashlight, and in its beam, Bella turned her head slightly, watching the actions. The lock yielded with a dull click. Jenny cautiously opened the cage door. The metal creaked, and Bella flinched but didn't try to crawl away or defend herself. She just watched, and in her eyes glimmered weariness mixed with something that could be hope. "Easy, girl," Jenny whispered, spreading the blanket. "We're going to get you out of here now." She slowly slipped her arms under the dog's body, trying not to cause pain. Bella was lighter than a German shepherd of her size should be. Hunger had taken its toll. When Jenny lifted her, the dog let out a quiet whimper but didn't resist. Martha had already opened the back door of the car, where a thick plaid lay. Jenny gently laid Bella down, wrapping her in the blanket. The dog shivered, but her gaze remained fixed on Jenny's face, as if afraid that if she blinked, it would all disappear. "I'm coming with you," Martha said, climbing into the front seat. Her voice allowed no argument. The car moved, leaving behind a dark house and an empty cage. Snow began to fall again, covering the earth with silent steps. Bella lay quietly, her breathing gradually becoming steadier in the warmth of the cabin. "I know a vet," Jenny said, looking in the rearview mirror. "He'll take us any time, and then we'll find her a real home." Martha nodded, her wrinkled hand resting on the dashboard, attempting to steady the car from jouncing on every bump. In the dark cabin, only the engine's hum and Bella's quiet breathing could be heard. The clinic greeted them with the yellow light of its single window. The young vet, Derek, waited at the door, his coat ghostly white in the darkness. Seeing Bella's condition, he nodded silently and led them inside, where the air smelled of medicine and cleanliness. "Frostbite, exhaustion," he said, examining the dog. "Hind leg, looks like an old fracture, badly healed. Surgery needed." Jenny stood nearby, her hands clenched. "Do whatever it takes. Send the bill to the shelter." Bella lay on the examination table, her eyes half closed, but her tail twitched slightly as Jenny petted her head. For the first time in a long while, the dog felt a touch that held no threat. "Leave her here," Derek said. "It's important to warm her up and start treatment now. By morning we'll know more." The following weeks turned into a slow battle for Bella's life. Each day brought small victories: the first time she ate on her own, the moment her tail wagged weakly, the day she raised her head at the sound of Jenny's steps. The surgery on her leg was successful, though recovery required time and patience. Martha came every day, bringing homemade broth and quiet conversations. She sat by Bella's cage and shared stories from her life, as if the dog were an old friend. Gradually, the fear in Bella's eyes was replaced by cautious interest. She began to respond to her name, turning her head when called. The scars on her body healed, but those in her soul would take longer. "You know," Martha said one day, watching Bella cautiously try to stand on her operated leg, "I have a big house and a garden and no one but a cat." Jenny looked up from her paperwork. "You want—" "Yes," Martha replied simply. "She needs a home, a real one, where she'll be loved." Bella, as if understanding what was being discussed, turned her head and looked at them. In her gaze, there was no longer the hopelessness that had been there on that snowy night. Spring came early that year. The snow melted, revealing the first timid blades of grass, and the air filled with the scent of awakening earth. In Martha's garden, the first crocuses appeared, their violet heads stretching toward the sun. Bella lay on the porch, her muzzle basking in the warm rays. Her fur began to grow thick and shiny. The limp was still there, but now she could walk without visible pain. Nearby, curled into a ball, slept Vasily, the black cat who, after a week of wary observation, decided the dog was worthy of his company. Martha bustled in the garden, hanging laundry. She often paused to look at Bella, and each time her face brightened with a smile. The dog responded with a gaze that held no fear, only calm trust. Jenny visited once a week. This time she brought a new ball and dog biscuits. Bella met her at the gate, her tail drawing circles in the air, a true wag full of joy. "Look," Martha said, pointing to a small vegetable patch by the fence. "We planted carrots together yesterday. She helped me dig." Jenny crouched, scratching Bella behind the ears. "Is she a good gardener?" "The best," Martha laughed, wiping her hands on her apron, though sometimes she thinks worms are toys too. They sat on the porch, drinking tea with a pie Martha had baked that morning. Bella was settled at their feet, her head on her paws. Occasionally she glanced up to check everyone was there before relaxing again. "You know," Martha said quietly, looking at her garden, "I thought old age was a time of loneliness. The children grew up, moved away, the days grew so long." She paused, then continued, "But now I have someone to wake up for. Someone waiting for breakfast, walks. Someone happy when I come back from the store." Bella, sensing the tremor in her mistress's voice, raised her head and gently laid her muzzle on Martha's lap. Martha stroked her, and tears glistened on her cheeks. "Who saved whom?" Jenny smiled, watching them. "Did you save her, or did she save you?" Martha wiped her eyes with the corner of her apron and smiled. "I think we saved each other. You know, at my age, it's easy to forget the joy in little things. And Bella, she teaches me that every day." Evening descended upon the garden, coloring the sky in gentle pink hues. Somewhere in the distance, dogs barked, and Bella listened to their voices but remained calm. This was her home, her garden, her people. "Tomorrow will be good weather," Martha said, watching the sunset. "Bella and I plan to plant tomatoes, and maybe later we'll walk to the lake. She loves watching the ducks." Jenny began to ready herself to leave. Bella accompanied her to the gate, and as the car started, she didn't bark after it. She just stood by Martha, leaning against her leg. They looked down the road for a long time, until the red taillights vanished into the dusk. Then Martha patted Bella's head. "Let's go home, girl. We've got a busy day tomorrow." Did you enjoy this story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to not miss new releases. See you soon.